Today we're having a quick look at the new StrikerDC pad kindly sent over by Retro Fighters. Now I've been eagerly awaiting this as the Dreamcast really needs a decent sort of standard pad for everyday use. The Dreamcast stock pad is pretty poor, especially for lengthy sessions, plus I really like their Brawler 64 pads, so I had high hopes for these. The controller itself comes in this rather nice sturdy box, and there's some spiel on the back about some of the features. Inside we get this little Retro Fighters keyring, an FAQ sheet, some stickers, and a quick start manual, and of course the controller itself. The pad looks great. It looks and feels kinda halfway between an Xbox controller and a PS4 controller. It claims to have a better analog stick with a high-end micro potentiometer, whatever that is. It's concave as opposed to the original pad's convex analog stick, and it's far more comfortable and responsive as a result. The D-pad isn't the greatest, but still better than the original, and it's less raised up. Other than these changes, the button placement is pretty much the same on the front, although they do have a marginally larger diameter than the original, which is welcome. There are, however, some significant differences. The first is the turbo feature. Hold down this turbo button and the button to which you want to assign the turbo feature, and it will activate turbo for that button. You do the same with the clear button to remove it. The VMU window has been improved. You can see here that it's slightly larger and less set back than the original, which provides a better view of the VMU screen, especially at an angle. Perhaps one of the best changes is with the shoulder buttons. The StrikerDC has two buttons for L and for R, one digital and one analog input. This opens up the controller's functionality considerably, as you have a button input for games like Fighters, and this pad was created with Fighters in mind of course, and also a pressure sensitive trigger which suits racing games, for example. Having these two options gives you the best of both worlds and is perhaps the most genius feature of the controller. Plus, the triggers are in a far more comfortable position than those on the original pad. Retro Fighters state in the FAQ that all first party peripherals like vibration packs etc. will work with the StrikerDC, but don't guarantee that all third party add-ons will. So the controller looks the business, but how does it actually play? I've tried it with a fair few games of various genres, so let's discuss a few of them. For a general overall test and get a feel for the pad, I played some Dynamite Cop. The pad was comfortable to hold and to use, even after a good while playing. The buttons are responsive and the D-pad and analog stick were very responsive, particularly the latter. I thought I'd give a shooter a bash, so why not one of my favourite Dreamcast games, Zero Gunner 2. There was no real difference here when compared to the original pad, apart from the increased comfort that I just mentioned. I do always play this game with a standard Dreamcast controller, as it's a shooter that doesn't really suit being played with an arcade stick due to the way the buttons rotate your chopper, so the StrikerDC will definitely be my pad of choice for Zero Gunner 2 going forward. Now for some Street Fighter Alpha 3, after all this pad was designed with fighters in mind. Now I do already have a couple of ASCII fight pads for playing fighters on the Dreamcast, so I will say that the D-pad wasn't quite as good. However, it was great for Street Fighter and I had no issues pulling off the moves. The extra shoulder buttons work brilliantly, as using the triggers on the original pad doesn't allow you to input the commands quick enough. Most people don't have the fight pads anyway, so this is a great option for fighters, and it's a bonus that it's an all-round pad. The drawback with the ASCII pads is that because they're only for fighters, they don't have the shoulder buttons. And now a game that utilises the triggers rather than the other shoulder buttons, Sega Rally, to test the responsiveness of the triggers. Absolutely brilliant. This pad is superb for driving games. Comfortable, responsive, it does exactly what you want it to. Perfect for racers. And lastly, I tried it with the recent release from Bitmap Bureau, Xenocrisis. I recently reviewed this for the Dreamcast and discussed the performance of several pads. The original Dreamcast controller, the ASCII FightPad FT, the arcade stick and the twin stick controller. Gutted that I couldn't include this as well, but it hadn't arrived yet. This works very well for Xenocrisis, and again it will probably become my go-to. The buttons are in the same place as the original, so the directional shooting is easy. The improved analog stick allows for more accurate movement, and the two options for shoulder buttons both work very well for the roll and grenade functions. So there we have it. Obviously I've only had the StrikerDC for a few weeks, so I can't comment on the pad's durability, but it seems very well made. It's quite light, a fair bit lighter than the original, or at least it feels like it is. But I like it, the weight is good, and as I've already said, this thing is just so comfortable. If you've used an original Dreamcast pad, I'm sure I don't need to convince you that this is infinitely more ergonomic. This pad will definitely become my go-to controller for the Dreamcast for all sorts of genres, and I'll be looking to pick up at least one more for multiplayer gaming, perhaps in one of the various other colours available. Hardly fair to have my guests using an uncomfortable original controller while I live it up with this thing, is it? I'll leave links below if you want to grab yourself one. They're 46 quid in the UK and 50 bucks in the US, and there are several colours available, this original style colourway, as well as blue, green, red and black. Thanks again to Retro Fighters for sending this over. Let me know what you guys think of the StrikerDC, and thanks for watching.